could do is just talk through a little bit about what to look for when you're considering getting a sling. So
yeah, brilliant.
There's a huge amount of information online. If we can have the first slide. This is something that you can just Google, so you can't see the writing there. It's just to give you all an idea of what the visual looks like. It's the TICS rules for safe baby wearing. So for some time now, it's been very important within the baby wearing industry, so the manufacturers, the sling consultants, to ensure really good safety, because a sling, like any other baby product, used unsafely is dangerous. The same as using, you know, a cot or a sleep aid or a car seat incorrectly. Yeah. So when you're using a sling, there are some basic safety checks you do that are essentially about maintaining baby's airway and ensuring they're well positioned. And the UK's best known version is TICS, because it's like a little tick list. You're ticking off those checks as you go. Baby needs to be tight. So whatever type of sling you're using, so we've mentioned stretchy wraps, those are long bits of material that you tie on really nice and snug so that they just slide baby in and the baby doesn't slump. Ring slings, just the sort of one you can see in the little image there, is a piece of material that comes around and goes through rings like a belt almost, and that's tightened off to ensure, again, no slumping. And the soft structured carriers all have different ways of pulling and tightening their straps, and what you're aiming to do is to get baby up nice and high on your chest and tight, so you can take a nice deep breath, you both feel comfortable, but there's no chance of baby being in it too loose and slumping down over time.
Yeah.
In view, if we have the next slide, actually, because I'll refer back to TICS now, I've had a little look at them. In view means that baby's face, which you can just see at the top of the picture there, would be uncovered by the sling. So what baby's clothing is covering up to the back of their knee is what the sling would cover. From the back of the neck, the back of the knee, no fabric covering their face. Sorry?
Nape of the neck.
Yeah, nape of the neck, and the sides, you know, away from the face. So we've got a couple of pictures in a minute and you'll see that baby's face is really clearly away from the fabric. So the long wraps and that kind of thing, it's really important that they're tucked away and they're not coming over baby's face. In the same way you wouldn't over cover a car seat, you wouldn't cover over a pram, you wouldn't pull blankets up over baby's head. Their face should be completely clear so they're in view to you. Close enough to kiss, as you said, is an example of keeping baby up nice and high. So they're high enough up that you can lean down and kiss their head without having to sort of stretch. Baby's worn really down too low here in the soft tissue. It's not as great for their airways. You want them up nice and high. And then the major thing about airways is ensuring that their chin is not pushed down to their chest where they can't then raise it up. Yeah. And again, that's mimicked if we think about how we put a baby into a car seat or anything else. We don't want them slumped with their chin down like this. Their chin should be off their chest. So in this lovely picture here, you can see babies resting their head against the parent's chest. Yeah. And although their shoulders up there, you can tell there's not a chin pushed right down where there's no kind of airway there. So it's not like, you know, there's only one position that's right. You've got this whole range here where there's enough airway for baby to breathe nicely, but pushed down really hard like this or hung really far back, not so great for the airways. And their back needs to be supported. When babies are born, their backs are in one continuous curve. They don't develop the S-bend, the S sort of shape until they're about 2 years old. So over a few months, you know, the top of their neck begins that upper curve, and then the lower back later on as they start to crawl around. So when they're born, they have this lovely sort of curved shape there, which we're calling the J shape. And we want to mimic that in the sling. So this picture's been taken. You can see the sling round mum's waist. She's had the sling on and they've peeled it away. And I do this all the time in sling fittings. We peel it away and I say, take a look, take a photo. That position is what you're wanting to achieve in your sling. And it's basically mimicking what you do in arms. If you scoop baby up for a lovely cuddle in arms, that's what you'd be
right
achieving.
There, aren't they?
Yeah. And that last little note at the bottom, the pelvic tuck, this is the trick to getting slings comfy. So once baby's up on your chest and all snuggled in, their face is clear, their chin's off their chest, check that their knees are hugged up into you and their pelvis has tucked down, because that brings their weight down really nice and central. They feel nice and secure. They're less likely to wobble and you're going to find it more comfortable to carry their weight. So some of the sort of slings that you buy off the high street that have very narrow bases, you can't achieve a pelvic tuck in them. So they're not as comfortable. You want one that comes right over the back of each knee to give baby that really nice deep-seated support.
Their legs often go a bit like frog's legs, don't they, Nicole?
They do. I mean, this baby's a good few months old. A tiny little newborn, their feet are going to be all tucked in, and you're bringing the sling up just up underneath the back of their knees, up their thighs. You're not involving the lower legs. They're tucked against the body. They might be covered up by the fabric, but they're not being supported by it. If we could have the next slide, you can see quite a small baby in a stretchy wrap. There we go.
Oh,
So we can't see the baby's bottom, but it's just to show that nice clear nose and mouth are uncovered. Now, that's from Dad's perspective, baby's nose and mouth are uncovered. To us, it looks like the mouth's covered up. If he's looking down, he can see nose and mouth are not covered by the sling, and that's what you're looking for. So the safety check is how it looks to you looking down.
yeah, right.
What we wouldn't want to see is any of that fabric coming up over baby's head or covering up their face. And just the last slide, thank you. So this is a slightly older baby, not much though, still a few weeks old, in a soft structured carrier. But what you can see is the carrier is just going from the back of the neck to the back of the knees. So the lower leg is loose, can move around for good circulation, and their face and head are not covered by the sling. But the baby's in exactly the same J position that they were if they were in the stretchy wrap or in that first photograph. And you can just see on Dad there as well, and it was the same on the stretchy wrap, the material spread out nice and wide across shoulders,
Over
down
the
around the
shoulders,
waist.
yeah.
So you've got nice ergonomic carrying rather than the sort of thinner straps that sort of hang the baby off you from a very small area.
Yeah.
That can get uncomfortable.
And that waistband, so I had a carrier like this, Nicole, thanks to you. And because I just didn't get on with some of the soft stretchy,
yeah, it can be a bit like origami, but yeah.
The waistband, I remember that waistband that you can see around his waist. I remember that felt like it felt really supportive, and actually took some of the baby's weight and kind of supporting your back as well.
Exactly that. And what it's doing, it's keeping baby's center of gravity really close to you. If you're wearing one that just sort of hangs off, it's harder to keep them really close. But when you're wrapping or doing ring slings, you don't always end up with a waistband, but you've still got baby tucked in really nice and close to you. So they're not being able to lean far away, which seems to add to their weight, which is a bit more physics than I can explain. But close up, tight to your center of gravity, they're going to feel more secure, more supported. And because they feel secure, they relax, and then they can balance and support their own weight. If they feel like they're hanging away, they tense up and it's harder. So the more secure and comfortable you can get them, the more comfortable the experience is going to be for everybody.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nicole. That's really helpful. Really learned loads there. That's really helpful. So hope